What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
Hey, what's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio. I'm your host, Josh Levine. My guest today is my man, Tsunder. Roman is the founder of PTTOW and Worldz, which are gatherings of game changers, business leaders, entertainers, people that are kind of defining today's culture and business environments. He's had everybody from the Dalai Lama to Will.i.am to John Buscemi's coming up at the next Worldz. Worldz is coming to Los Angeles July 31st. If you don't have tickets, you might want to check out worldz.us and see what it's all about. Roman's going to tell us what it was like building this leading gathering of marketing influencers and how he's come to create this amazing career and life for himself. He's got some great lessons, just really challenging himself and getting out of his comfort zone and competing with himself, not with other people. Good stuff coming up from Tsunder right after our EDM.com track of the week.
I can't get over the way you're running through my mind. You're like an endless summer, never running out of time.
Yo, that was the track of the week from our friends over at EDM.com. That was, I think it's pronounced Prism, PRXSM, with a track called Can You Tell Me? And now let's get into the interview with Tsunder.
Can you tell me how you got so wrapped up in my
We'll let you guide us through what it is. But yeah, I mean, let's jump into it. I want to talk about Worldz. I'm coming.
Great.
This will be my first Worldz.
Oh, good.
And, I've been
It's
following.
a 10-year journey.
Is that right?
Yeah. You're
So-
on chapter 2.
So I want to hear how we got there and where it's going and learn a little bit about PTTOW as well. But maybe we can start at the very beginning and I don't know if that's at UCLA or whatever, but how did you get to the place where you're building this business and life for yourself?
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's definitely an honor for you to be interested in my story and what we're doing. It really is, especially because there's so many great stories out there,
Sure.
For me, I think it all started when my mom immigrated to America when I was 5 years old. And my mom, she was a happy and hopeful 29-year-old.
Mm.
And because of anti-Semitism and bigotry and lack of opportunity, she decided to move to another land with no language, no
Wow.
job, no money, all in the pursuit of like a better life, like an immigrant dream, which I think
Yeah.
now is a commonality,
Sure.
And
It is, but I think we seem to, or there's elements of our society that seem to want to forget that.
Yeah, I don't think you can forget that. I think people that forget that, but that are just clearly unauthentic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ultimately to chart an important path, you have to be vulnerable and authentic. So if you let go of that, who you are,
Yeah.
that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so I was 5 and we moved over with less than $100. And I was like, FOB, fresh off the boat.
Yeah.
And I had like a messed up haircut and my mom dressed me in like Ross Dress for Less polka dot outfits. And it was embarrassing. And our family moved to Orange County where everybody was cool in Laguna Beach and Laguna Niguel. We were like not on the beach part, we're in the Niguel part.
Sure.
And they wore like awesome Quicksilver board shorts and we couldn't afford those, but that was kind of like my dream. And so that's where it started, like our family, I think, like our immigrant story. And I was Jewish and I was Russian and in Orange County, everything's so whitewashed. There were like 2 African-American kids in my school. There was 2 Jewish kids out of like a school of 2,000.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about something you said, because growing up without any money, which I did as well, what does that do to your relationship to money and financial success now?
I mean, it's a huge part of my formula for success, which is financial freedom.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I have to like have yachts in Saint-Tropez, but it does mean that, you know, I have certain freedoms in my life, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I want to be able to have the mental freedom to be able to think creatively. And when you're struggling to pay the bills, you're thinking about how to pay the bills, not how I can think about changing the world.
Right. Yeah.
So to me, financial success is important for creative success.
So are you conscious, like, you know, I'm sure you, like I do, have a lot of friends who came from money, or, you know, sometimes a lot of money, or they just never worried about money.
Yeah.
And I don't know, to speak for myself, I always feel like there's a difference in what all that means to me versus what it means to them. Are you conscious of that?
Yeah, I've, you know, both in Laguna and in New York City,
Yeah.
I worked in finance and investment banking, so I was around a lot of wealthy people and companies. And I think the question is, and I think it would be interesting to see how most people voted on this. If you had a chance to be born again, would you rather be born poor or a billionaire?
It's hard to argue for being poor. Although, you know, I think
When I say poor, let's say lower middle class.
I get it.
Yeah.
But it's hard to, you know, it's hard to argue to have less money. Although I think we can probably find areas in our life where that's helped us, or having overcome certain things has helped us. But, you know, but yeah, that's hard to like put that on yourself.
Yeah, or ask another question. It's like, when you think about, you know, where you are today, successful on your journey, whatever you call it, are you grateful for all the good things that happened that have brought you here?
Sure.
Are you more grateful for the bad things that have brought you here, the hardships? Which ones are you more grateful for?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's funny. I mean, I think about that as a father, because I have a 7-year-old son, and you know, we're by no means like set for life, but he doesn't have to struggle with a lot of the things that I did. And so, you know, part of me I don't want life to be too easy for him. You know what I mean? I just steal his toys in the middle of the night, and you know, he's got to like figure it out. No, but, you know, but that's a real thing to sort of think about as you know, in your own journey, and certainly with families.
Yeah, so I think it's, you know, those are interesting things to explore.
Yeah, totally. So, so growing up that way, so where did the idea come from for PTTOW and Worldz, or was that well, maybe just talk about what those are, and like, you know, what is the journey for you overall, and what are these two things specifically?
Yeah, so for me, my big passion is like how culture gets shaped, and culture gets shaped by youth culture. So everything I've really done in investment banking, in venture capital, in entrepreneurship. I'm an entrepreneur. It's probably the best way to describe what I do. My last company, Access 360, we built one of the largest fashion and music content networks.
Yeah.
And just started to notice that 60% of the world is under 30, 70% in developing countries, Africa, South America, the Middle East. That's why there's the revolution and started into here square. So it was just crazy for me that there wasn't a like Davos or like Allen and Company or like a United Nations for like youth culture.
Yeah.
But that's the future of our world, and countries are getting overthrown because of it. So, and I'm one of those guys that if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? Like for me, like apathy is not an option.
Yeah.
So on the side, we started PTTOW, and it was, I think it was 2009. It was just a passion project of 25 people that also believed of the power of youth culture. And our second year, you know, we grew it to 35 people, and we had like a broken projector. It was at a nice hotel. It was at my friend's hotel at the time, the St. Regis in Laguna.
Yeah.
And but everything was broken because we didn't know how to do events.
Sure.
That wasn't my experience. And then the second year, people were like, "Hey, are we doing this again?" I'm like, "Well, if you guys want to come, I'll do it again." And so we did it. And then the third year, we weren't going to do it because I was like the sole founder and CEO of the company. And I had a board of directors, and I had top-tier venture investors. And I'm one of those people that I meet some people, and they can like juggle a lot of things. They're like always doing a lot of different projects or companies.
Yeah.
I can never understand that. To me, that's not a recipe for success. I don't really find too many of those people become successful either. When they have like their hand on a bunch of different stuff. I can barely do one thing well. You know, so to do two things is like really hard. Like I look at Elon Musk and I'm like, that dude is the man.
Sure.
And so I couldn't do Access and PTTOW, and so I decided not to do PTTOW. And so what PTTOW is, it's a private membership. To be a member, you have to be a top, you have to represent one of the 70 major industries that shape our world, from space travel to fashion to music to sports to gaming. And you have to be the CEO or the CMO of one of those companies, or a cultural icon. Our icons range from the Dalai Lama to Mike Bloomberg to David Guetta to Usher. You know, so really broad range, to Tony Hawk and Kelly Slater.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this kind of cultural Noah's Ark. We like to think of it.
That's cool.
And so in our third year, I couldn't do both. I wasn't going to do it. I was invited to this random lunch at the Ritz-Carlton in Laguna Beach from this woman named Kelly Smith. And at lunch, there was this Buddhist monk. It was like her friend, and a monk. Have you ever met a Buddhist monk?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a conversation with one?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
You know? Because you
it's-
can't talk about business and you
Right.
can't talk about like, what'd you do this weekend? It's like, how are you feeling? Like,
Sure.
what did you eat? It's like, you know, the commonalities are totally different.
Right.
So halfway through lunch, I realized that this Buddhist monk, his name is Lama Tenzin, that he was the Dalai Lama's emissary for peace. And so I'm like, that's cool. You know, that's close to the Dalai Lama. And even as a Jewish guy, like for me, I'm like very Buddhist in terms of my
Sure.
personality and mentality. And so I realized that halfway through lunch that he represents His Holiness. And so I had this crazy idea, well, shouldn't I know that the Dalai Lama speaks to students in universities all the time. So I had this crazy idea. I should ask him if the Dalai Lama would come to PTTOW. By this point, I wasn't going to do PTTOW, so there actually was no PTTOW. And so I go, hey, Lama Tenzin, and I was trying to think how to relate to him. I'll go, you know how the Dalai Lama, I don't even know how to say his name.
Sure.
The Dalai Lama, he speaks to students in universities all the time.
Yeah.
And you know how those students have genes? And that they have cell phones, because I saw he had an Apple iPhone, and I saw the Dalai Lama got on Twitter earlier or recently. So they're on Twitter, and he goes, "Oh yes, Holiness just got on Twitter." I go, "Incredible." I go, "Don't you think it would be a great idea for His Holiness to speak to the companies that are influencing all these young people?"
Yeah.
And Lama Tenzin looks at me and he goes, "I'll meditate on it."
Okay.
But he lies. He goes, hee 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 hee. I'll meditate on it, because he always giggles.
Yeah.
And in like business, in like normal person's terms, that means like I'll think about it, which is usually a no.
Right.
So
He meant it literally.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And a month later, I hit him up, and he's like, "Oh, I think what you're doing is a good thing." I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." He goes, "I will talk to His Holiness next time I go to Dharmasala." Go, incredible. Like, he's going to talk to the Dalai Lama about me and this PTTOW thing. And so a month later, I reach out to him. "Did you have a chance to speak to His Holiness?" He goes, "No, His Holiness is very busy." I'm like, sure. Like, he's got a lot of other things to do than think about me and PTTOW, of course. By the way, that isn't happening.
Right. Right. So you're not planning
No.
PTTOW number 3
No,
yet.
and this is like September.
Yeah.
And we usually do it in May.
Yeah.
But I am running my other company. And so now I feel like I'm bugging the guy. Like, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
So September passes, October passes. I reach out to him again in October. He goes, "Oh, I've not had a chance to speak with him, but the elders will meditate on it." So I'm just trying to visualize like 50 elders in Dharmasala, all in their like robes, like meditating whether they should do PTTOW. And I'm like, well, sure, fine. But I promised myself I wouldn't reach out to him. So, again, because I felt like I was bugging him. So November passes, December passes, January 22nd, I get a phone call, this Lama Tenzin. I already knew that it wasn't happening. So I was like, just kind of talked for 45 minutes. You know, how's your family? How are your parents? I got to know him pretty well. And at the end of the conversation, I go, "Lama Tenzin, by the way, did you ever have a chance to speak to His Holiness about PTTOW?" And he goes, "Oh, yes, yes, yes." I go, amazing. What did he say? He goes, he thinks what you were doing is a good thing. I go, whoa, I literally fell. Like, I remember the only other time I fell was when I got an offer to work in investment banking from First Boston. And I fell to the ground. I'm like, oh, I can't believe that the Dalai Lama thought about me and he's thinking I'm doing a good thing. Even though it's not happening. Because it's kind of like, for me, like business is like falling in love.
How do you mean?
Like when you fall in love with somebody and like falling out of love. And for me, you know, my business life and my personal life are intertwined.
Okay.
And when you meet the most successful people, there is no separation between business and personal life. And for me, it's like a work-life harmony. I think it's fantastic. It makes my personal life better. It makes my business life better. I don't understand like the separation. I understand compartmentalizing things so you can focus and be present. So I don't know how I got on that tangent.
Well, you're just saying like, he's saying like he likes what you're doing.
Right. He likes what I'm doing. And so I think, okay, well, how you can't ask a monk a direct question. So I go, Lama Tenzin, do you think that it's a good idea that we reserve the penthouse suite at the St. Regis for His Holiness so that he's comfortable?
Yeah.
And he goes, yes, I think it's a good idea. And
Nice.
so after PTTOW not existing and they called it the ultimate Hail Mary, he ended up joining us
Wow.
in May, 4 or 5 months later. And if it wasn't for that, there's a good chance PTTOW wouldn't exist.
Yeah. That's a great story. So, and there's so much to unpack from that. So, before you got to that point, though, how did it start? Right, like you had this idea, you had your own company, and I get you had this idea that there should be something for youth culture in a way that there wasn't. I'm curious because everything you're saying, like, you know, all I'm hearing is tenacity.
Yeah, hustle.
Yeah, you know, we call it chutzpah,
It's
right?
sure.
Like to ask the Dalai Lama, most people wouldn't do that,
Yeah.
right? Where does that come from?
You know what? I think that it's really important to learn how to be comfortable outside of your comfort zone. And so from my first like professional experiences, I remember I was living in New York and I sneak into like the Variety film conference with all the studio heads there. And I would force myself, because I was so publicly shy, to like ask a question in front of everybody. And the reason for me to do it was only because I was afraid to do it, you know? And so I'd always push myself to do it for the principle of being a little bit scared, you know? And that's been a constant in my life, is pushing myself to be out of my comfort zone. And ultimately what you find with really successful people that are like the GOATs is like, how are you constantly comfortable outside of your comfort zone?
So how do you do that today?
I think you have to find out like what your fears are.
No, so for you, right? Because you faced a lot of those fears. Obviously, you know, I can imagine building a company over this time period. So what are those things today that scare you that you make yourself do them anyway?
Oh, wow. I think, you know, creating worlds, like creating something, you know, if you think about it in our lives, like I was in New York with Deepak Chopra, and he has a new book about reality versus consciousness. Like, what's reality and what's consciousness? Because all we're seeing is our lights through our eyes, and you can touch and feel things. And so the most important thing in our civilization, and when you actually become, when we became civilized, when we actually started telling stories. Like when humans first started speaking, it was actually gossip, talking about like, look at that person did, or just groaning, grunting. But then saying like father, mother, fire, home, village, town, city, country, religion. And so actually everything in our lives is storytelling. And so I think when you're creating a new story, and in our case, creating worlds, you're creating something that's never existed before. So I think it's the ultimate, and it's not just worlds, but anytime anybody creates something new is very profound, because you're creating something that's been imagined in your mind, and you basically push that into the world. So whenever you do that, and for us, the most important thing that I've learned also is that you can only achieve what you can dream. So when you have a dream, make that dream 10 times bigger, and then go after that dream. And that's why it's called Worldz, because we want worlds to be bigger than this world. You know, so what does Worldz look like on Mars? You know, so that's how I tend to think about things. That's how I get our team to think about things. I learned that from our Icon and our Titan members. The commonality when I talk to them is have a dream, make it 10 times bigger, then go after that. Because otherwise, the most valuable thing you have in your life is your time. And so how do you want to be spending your time? To be average and do things that everyone else is doing? Or do you want to be epic and do things that no one's ever done? I want to do epic shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. That's great.
So, but it's easy to say that, but then you actually have to hustle. Then you have to put the hours in. So it's like everything's new. So at every turn, whether it's, you know, what our master courses are, what our main stages are, what our first, like, you know, when we got, you know, Tony Hawk there last year, when we got Cascade there last year, when we got Quincy Jones there last year, you know, asking them to be a part of something that's never been created was like a very bold move. You know, you just have to believe it, and then you have to back it up with your feet through action.
So explain how Worldz is. So PTTOW is now how many years old?
So PTTOW, we're actually going into our 10th year. It's only 250 people.
Yeah.
It's been a capped community for the last 4 years. It's now the most influential community of minds and brands that's ever been assembled in the world. It's a huge privilege for us to be a part of it. Us and our PTTOW members are the ones that created Worldz because they wanted a place for themselves and for other epic people. Because although PTTOW is intimate at 250 people, there needs to be a huge echo in terms of the type of work that we're doing. We're helping everybody from Fox create the next version of the World Cup. We help the Olympics create the new platform for the Olympic Games. We work with David Blaine creating the new World Tour for Magic. And so we can have such a greater impact on that through the Worldz community.
Cool.
And so that's how it got created. So what Worldz is, it's really kind of like, think of it as like PTTOW on steroids.
Okay.
It's even more fun and more inspiring, and everything's just bigger. Because what we wanted to do is our goal, if we're going to do something, we wanted to make it to be a multiple of how good PTTOW is. We didn't want it to be like a side thing. We want it to be even more epic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's something that stands out. You know, I came to the thing you did at CES with Cirque du Soleil. And, you know, like, at the heart, what you do is a conference, right? But it's clearly much more than that. And I think that, you know, that was my first time in, you know, I'd seen, like, you know, I'd heard of PTTOW and I'd seen the website and that kind of stuff, right? And I know people, you know, friends that belong. But like, without it being explained to me, you know, sitting in that Cirque du Soleil theater, like, I instantly got that this is not like a conference like Davos or whatever, right? Where, you know, where it's just about panels and keynotes and the cocktail hour, right? So can you talk about why is it important, and how do you think about that? How do you bring, you know, the entertainment into what you're doing? Yeah.
I think it's like the classic, you know, entrepreneurs like passion, which is, what's the problem? The problem is that conferences suck. It's the wrong people talking about the wrong things, and it's people that just want attention and they're on the circuit.
Yeah.
So when I'd go to these things, I was like, the biggest takeaway I'd have was like, oh, I already know that. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know how you go to those?
Always.
And people deserve better. Like, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're a marketer, like, you deserve to be tapped. You deserve to have your imagination tapped into. You know, you're in a creative business. So for me, like, the higher purpose and the privilege and the honor of hosting people, think about like the profound honor of being able to come into something that I'm creating for you, and how I can value every minute of your time for it to be valuable, right? Because it's that whole thing of what you say. It's not what you say or not what you do. It's how you make people feel. And my passion in life is to make people feel the ability to do what's never been done before. We call it the NBDB. And so it's to create human transformation. It's to allow people to have a creative awakening, because when you open up your mind, then you are in a realm of endless opportunity. So it's just messed up that you go to a conference and the best thing you learn is like, I already know all that stuff.
Right.
So to me, it was just broken.
Yeah.
And so my team and I for 5-6 years never even had like an events person on it. You know, it was all just entrepreneurs and creative people. Like, what would we create for ourselves and our friends? And that's why we don't call what we do as a conference.
Right.
We definitely call it like an experience or a summit. And we create a story for people. It's kind of like a song. Like, there's a beginning, and then it builds, and then it drops, and then it peaks. And we create an emotional journey for people. Now, it's not Burning Man, where it's just like, or a music festival where it's just fun and people escape life. We actually want to do it where it revolves around your work, because you spend so much of your life around work. So it's not just fun. We like to think it's meaningful fun, right? Because now the people you're around are people that can really accelerate your creative ideas and your business growth. And to me, that's more valuable. Well, it's not more valuable. You need both.
Sure.
You know, I just got back from Coachella too, so it's all good.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we need both. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way about conferences, and I think, you know, it's mostly such a wasted opportunity.
The other thing is, it's so messed up that you go to a conference and then no one ever goes back. The speakers don't come back. The
Right.
attendees don't come back.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time. Honestly, it's like a pure ego play. And so that's why we don't do conferences, even with it's like what we do is everything we do is a community. So when you went to Cirque du Soleil, that was a stop along our year-round community tour. We just did one in, I think you were there at Soho,
Soho, yeah.
House with Andy Walsh.
Yeah.
So that's another, you know, I think every month or a couple times a month, we were just in New York at WeWork, and we did something with Werner, who's the new chief engagement officer of Samsung, talking about storytelling. And tomorrow we have another one that we're doing with an organization called Gen X, and it's with a guy named Sebastian Copeland, who's one of the top Arctic explorers in the world.
Cool.
And so that kind of tour continues. So again, I think what you want is, you know, people need a community of like-minded people, and they need a movement. And so that's what we're creating for people, is for them to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. For us, it's bigger than me. It's bigger than my company. It's bigger than our members. It's a global impact that we're having on people's kind of creative opportunities.
How do you get, you know, the people that you're trying to attract on both sides, both as attendees, members, and speakers, right? Have huge demands on their time and money, right, and their creative resources and all of that, right? And there's, you know, there's other people approaching the same problem, maybe in different ways, right? But whether it's Aspen or Davos or Summit Series or TED even, right? So how are you, you know, how do you think about that sort of competitive environment, and how do you, you know, how do you create a reason for people to want to invest their time and money in this?
Yeah. So I'm not a competitive person, first and foremost. Like, I don't ever want anybody to lose when I'm doing something. To me, that just, you know, we're all one consciousness. If you lose, I lose. So I don't really understand the concept of competitiveness. I do understand the concept of being the best. Okay. If I'm going to be involved in something, I want to be the best in the world. Like, that's, and my team, I want our team to be the best in the world. That gives you confidence. It gives you pride. It gives you a chance to do epic things. Doesn't mean I don't want anyone else to do epic things also. I just, you know, we're racing with ourselves. And we know, obviously, who's out there. To us, show the action around that, because Worldz is open source, is that we're actually partnered with Aspen and TED and Summit and Soho House and all those other communities.
Yeah.
So we actually want everybody there. And I actually love it when people take our ideas, because we are inspired by other people, and what we've seen in other places give us our ideas to, like, we get a lot of ideas from music festivals, whether it's Burning Man or Tomorrowland or Coachella or other creative festivals around the world. And we go on a couple creative adventures a year. And honestly, we've gotten some of our best ideas from other people and other experiences, and it would be a shame for us not to share it with others. So we hope others take our ideas.
That's cool.
I know people are protective about their ideas, but I don't think I think that selfishness doesn't work.
I mean, I've always felt like the ability to pull off an idea is what really counts. And yeah, I can, I'll give away all my ideas for free.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter. Right?
And even with our members, like we offer our members to everyone from Summit to festivals in Canada to events in Finland. We're always like, how can we help? Our first question is, how can we help?
Yeah. So I imagine, now doing PTTOW for 10 years, some parts of that must have gotten much easier. What hasn't gotten easier?
I think the thing that hasn't gotten easier is the challenge to attract the most influential people in the world. Because I think if, I'm sure you're this way, you're like, okay, I'm going to go there and just check it off my list. Like I've been there. Like I kind of did that with Burning Man. I went to Burning Man. I'm like, okay, I don't need to go for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm going to parachute back in at some point.
Yeah.
It's not lost on us that our members have more influence than most global heads of state. So we treat them as such. Because of the impact that they have, we know that our outreach, every single point of communication that we have with them and year-round is meaningful. And the experiences we create for them need to be the best in the world. And so our job is to create like the best experience on earth for business people. We can't compete with people having children and going to Amalfi on their vacations.
Right.
That's epic. But from a business standpoint, it's having that level of excellence, center of excellence, to continue to increase the caliber and prestige of the community. So that never gets easy.
Is it like a conscious thing to raise the bar for yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, our thing is we try to leave everything on the field. Like if we have an idea, we don't try to save it for later. We were like, we're gonna, like this year at PTTOW and at Worldz, it's taken us a couple of years, but we finally got Travis Pastrana and Nitrous Circus to do like a live stunt show over like lunch.
Wow.
And they do like motorcycle, like backflips, like something that's never been done before. So we're always looking. I have someone on our team that's the head of WOW, and their job is to purely to go out and find the most inspiring experiences around the world.
Wow.
Got a wow out of you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Where does that idea come from to hire someone, like to hire that position?
Just not being a victim of like legacy thinking.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like in our team and my co-founder, Jim Sullis, who's the head of creative, and he's the one that creates all the creative at Worldz for us to, last year we got the Goodyear blimp. Last year at Worldz, we had the Red Bull Air Force do a nighttime fireworks dive over the 405 freeway and live and land on site.
It's killer.
Yeah. So we want to be known for, so when you see that, you literally think like aliens are coming. And what that does to like now imagine you're actually thinking like something that's impossible is happening. To open up the mind to that creative space of imagination, you all of a sudden start thinking differently. And that's what we want to do. We want people to start thinking differently. And so every minute we kind of manage how everyone's experience is.
What's been the hardest part of this journey?
I think the hardest part is, and probably should be, retainment and recruitment of team. So for me, this is like, I'm here, but like I visualize like my 25-person team behind us, because I'm inspired by them constantly. I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm bad at, and there's a few things that I'm good at and the rest of the stuff, if it wasn't for our team, none of this would be possible. And so the most challenging thing is, like I learned this from the team over at Andreessen Horowitz, is A's attract A's and B's attract C's. Yeah. So I just want to be around A's. First of all, I want to be an A. I want to be someone that others want to work with and collaborate with. And from like world leaders to world shapers. And I want our team to even be better than I am. Like, I always want to be the dumbest person in the room. I want to ask the dumb questions. I love it when I don't have to say anything in meetings. I love it when all the ideas come from the rest of the team. I love it when I can lead from behind and I don't have to make decisions. And the fact is that the most important decisions at any business, 60 to 70% of them should come from the bottom up.
So how do you measure yourself? Like, when you talk about being an A, we're often not great judges of ourselves. So how do you measure that?
Well, like, I kind of have a little bit of a formula. I'm like a life hacker geek. So one, I think you have to start with like obsession. You know, do you love what you do? And you have to look yourself in the mirror and you're like, am I faking it or do I love this?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a first start. Two, you have to put in more hours than anybody else. You know, like this morning I started working at 6:30. By the time I even get to the office, 10 o'clock, 10:30, I've already had a half day full of work, of focus. I always have a list of like things that move the needle because work for work's sake is just a waste of time.
Sure.
I try to tell my team that. So I always have like, what are like top 3 or 5 bullets are going to move the needle on what I need to accomplish. And if I know those are the things that move the needle and I know the hours I'm putting into doing those things, then I'm going to be successful or I'm going to fail, but I'm going to fail my way into success. And so for me, failure is like a really important tool, you know, and because we're creating something new, for every 3 failures we have 1 success. And so I think it's really important to give people the permission to know that as long as they have that obsession, as long as they're putting in the hours, as long as they're focused, then it's okay to fail and it's necessary to fail. And you need failure. And I can give endless examples of the most successful people in the world using failure as their biggest motivation.
Is there a failure that stands out that you got the most out of? As far as recently as I'd say 7 years, I started a company called Mob Mobile, and my last company was around retail, so I felt like I had a good grasp on what's happening in the retail industry and what's happening with mobile. Obviously, everyone's talking about mobile, so I started a company that, you know, basically aggregated mobile locations, kind of like a Foursquare type thing. And it failed, you know, for a number of different reasons, and it was a terrible experience. When I was going through it, I would say a lot of my self-confidence and my ego, or hopefully lack of ego, has to do with work. So I need to feel that I've got a success or a path towards success with work, or I lose a lot of self-confidence. I don't know if that's the case for other people. I'm sure it is. So when I failed at that, and I was probably 37, 38 years old, like that hit me really hard because I felt like and I didn't know what I was going to do after that. And I felt like I lost my passion. And that's why I think work is like love. It's like when you're in love with someone and someone breaks up with you. I remember when I was 27, like this girl, Perrine, she really broke my heart. And I was devastated. And although we were going out for 6 months, it took me a year to get over her. And I actually had to go to magic school to really get over her. That's a whole different story. Wow.
But to kind of distract myself. And now that I look back, it was one of the best things that happened to me. And the same thing
you got to go to magic school.
Yes, and that's one of the things for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so when I failed at Mob Mobile, I kind of hit a low and I felt hopeless. And to me, the worst feeling in the world is hopelessness. And when I felt that and I didn't know what I was going to do, I was really lost and out of love and didn't see a path forward. And that was probably the last time that I had like a significant failure that gets me emotional versus daily failures that you just overcome.
Well, if I ever get divorced, I'm going to magic school. There's a question I want to ask you here.
And the reason I went because it was right when David Blaine came out with the Street Magic. And so I was walking down 3rd Street Promenade and I saw this dude doing street magic. He was like
Yeah.
levitating like a Heineken bottle,
Yeah.
like between his two hands. And I was like, oh my God, that's incredible. After the show, 3rd Street Promenade street performer. I go, you're so incredible. How can I be your apprentice?
No way.
Yeah. I'm like, for me, everything's like one big movie. Like, of course you have to be an apprentice for a magician.
Sure.
He goes, kid. I wasn't a kid. I was like, oh, no, this is after the release. So I was 27.
Yeah.
He goes, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You can't be my apprentice. But I can get you an interview at the Magic Castle. And so I got an interview at the Magic Castle and went to school there.
Nice. I know these are questions you ask. So I want to ask you, what are you most inspired by?
I'm probably most inspired by my mom. You know, to think back, being 29 years old and having a family and having nothing and moving to another land across the world without anybody. I mean, think of just moving from your city, you know, with resources. So I'd say I'm most inspired by my mother, about her courage. And I think that's kind of a constant in my life. And she works at the company.
Oh, no way.
She works with us. So
Oh,
I
so
get
cool.
to see her more often,
That's amazing.
which is cool.
Yeah,
She lectures me all the time.
I'm sure.
Yesterday I was sitting in my office. She goes, "Do you know this that you're doing?" I'm like, "Now I do."
Well, I was going to ask something you said earlier. You know, you seem to be in touch with what you're good at and what you're not good at. What are you bad at that you had the hardest time giving up?
Giving up, for example.
Like letting go of, letting someone else do it.
Oh. Dramatic pause.
I like it. Got suspense building up.
Yeah. I think that one of the things is like at Worldz, we kind of have a really great membership team, and I spend less time on membership. I've actually tried to pull myself out of membership completely because it's not about my friends. You know, this is like a business, and so we need objectivity when it comes to memberships at Worldz and at PTTOW. So one thing that I really enjoy is obviously spending, like, getting people to come become part of our community. And instead of being on the front lines of that, I'm now kind of retreated from that and spend more time on the creative experience, which is still really fun for me.
Yeah.
And then putting a team in place that can kind of speak to the soul of what Worldz is and getting that message out to the world is something that I've probably had to let go of. That what I really love, and shifted my focus on other things that I can help move the needle at the company.
It's cool. It's cool because I think, you know, as an entrepreneur, there's this ongoing process of like letting things go, right? That and I've had to remind myself and people I work with that you can't get to the next thing if you're still holding on to the old thing, right? There just won't be enough time in the day or enough mental space or whatever.
Yeah, when Astro Teller, the head of Google's X, he's a super inspiring guy, obviously, and he's obviously there. He kind of pursues all the moonshots, and what he calls it is, he goes, it's killing your darlings. You have to kill your darlings, because even though you're like, let's say for instance, we're really excited about creating Worldz Europe.
Yeah.
But we're not ready for that because it'll take our focus away from like Worldz United States or Worldz North America. So even though you're really passionate about something, if it doesn't fit into like the logical strategic vision, you have to kill your darlings. And 9 out of 10 darlings you have to kill, or else the one thing you're going after is going to suffer.
Yeah, I think that's really hard, especially for successful people, right? Who have been conditioned to believe that they can do things, right? To have confidence. And so I think it's really hard to say, you know, because I think it's really easy to rationalize and, you know, build your argument for yourself of why this is a good idea to go do this now, even though maybe it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really great point for two reasons. Number one, when I was at Access, and after that I started Mobile, it was in the same space, in the same industry, and it still failed. And I was probably, put in more hours than most people trying to figure out that problem.
Sure. Yeah, and you were probably better qualified than...
And I was overconfident.
Right.
Like, it was the first time I had like a really big failure. And to me, that was a huge, like, it was very humbling, and it was a really great learning lesson. And then I kind of kept that lesson at heart when even though we had PTTOW launching Worldz, even a Worldz is also a community and a summit, it's still a very different type of community and a summit. And so to be overconfident that there are things that you're going to get wrong that you think you're going to get right,
Sure.
is going to happen. So the person that's going to suffer the most is that leader. I truly feel that even though you've had successes before, does not mean at all that you're going to have a success in the future. And as a matter of fact, if you're overconfident and you feel like you have a talent for it, that's a higher percentage that you're going to fail.
Right.
So you really have to think of like a scrappy startup person and I have plenty of friends that have like had huge exits and have built great companies, and they try something new and it completely fails. And there are a lot of leadership organizations also that, that's why a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to build this business and I'm going to sell it.
Right.
Like, I don't really buy into that, because for people ask me like, what's the exit strategy or something like that, I go like, for me, it's like death. Like, I can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah.
So for me, the mission isn't about the money. I think whenever you're building something, you have to do something that's bigger than yourself. You almost have to say like, I can't not do it, that there's no one else in the world to do it. And if you get to that point in your own life and in your team's life, then that's when you found kind of your calling and you found your passion, you found your obsession. I think a lot of people are always searching like, how do I find, people ask me often like, I don't know if I have a passion. I haven't found my passion. How do you find that?
Yeah.
I think there is a little bit of a road to that.
What's the next challenge you're facing?
Well, the next challenge is to put together with the journey that we're on for Chapter 2 of Worldz. So Worldz is a summit and a community where we're uniting today's superstars, people that are the best in the world in their crafts. This year we have everybody from Tony Robbins from personal development, to Kelly Slater for surf and the environment, to will.i.am for philanthropy and entrepreneurship and music, obviously, and uniting them with the rising stars, the people that are going to be tomorrow's leaders to kind of create the world of tomorrow. So we think about from that level. It's a 10-year journey. And so last year was Chapter 1, because people need a journey.
Yeah.
Chapter 1, the maiden voyage. It was the most successful launch for a community and summit. We were going to cap it at 500. We ended up being at about 800 people. This year we're going into Chapter 2. And so it's Chapter 2, losing sight of the shore.
Okay.
Because whenever you go on any great adventure, you have to let go of the known and the familiar, and you have to go to uncharted lands and new destinations that get you out of your comfort zone. And so that'll take us to Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 and all the way to Chapter 10. And the whole point of that is to create the most important cultural moment on Earth or beyond. And a lot of people ask me, well, why should I go to Worldz? Like, what am I going to discover there?
Sure.
One thing is one of those things you just got to go. It's kind of like Burning Man. Like, you can't explain, you just got to go. But
I've been saying that about Coachella from the beginning. Like,
yeah, you just got to go.
Yeah.
So it's usually when a friend of yours tells you that, that's when I usually go to things. But the value, and because it's very driven, we have a lot of companies there, so there's the ROI word. And so one, it's for leadership development. Like, imagine what you can learn about being a leader from Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Right? Two, it's about being better at your craft, being better at your job. So imagine if you're with the top luxury fashion professional from LVMH. Imagine if you're with the top person from MasterCard, Raja, who focuses on the future of payments, whether it's credit cards or Bitcoin. Imagine if you're learning from the best person around music, what the future of music is in the handshake and culture. So how do you be better at your job, whether it's marketing, innovation, product, and also how you can be better at your life. Like, we have Jim Quick, who's Elon Musk's brain coach.
Oh, wow.
And so he helps you with like life hacks. How can I read faster? How can I be more efficient? How can I get more out of my time, my personal time, professional time? And then the third reason is to find your most important friendships and your business partnerships. So we just have so many partnerships that happen out of Worldz. And when you create those partnerships, whether you do it on your own from what you've learned, or you partner with somebody else. Like we just helped Nike partner with National Geographic to do a series on the first marathon under 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
So that's something, for instance, that was birthed through
Killer.
us. And so that's how culture gets shaped. That's what we're doing for the World Cup and other places. So those are the three things that you're going to get out of it. And everything we do is our goal is to be 10 times better than anybody else or be different. So it's not a normal type of experience. And the feedback that we got from last year was it just, the testimonies were like, it just kind of changed my life.
Yeah.
Of course, there are people that it wasn't for them.
Sure.
But for the most part, we were kind of really, for the mistakes that we made, the things that we did right, we were really stoked about.
What have you found? So like anybody listening, thinking about whether they should apply, right? What is, as you said, it's not for everyone. Some people may come and, and so who is it for?
I think it's for people that are bold. I think it's for the innovators. It's for the dreamers. It's for the rule breakers. It's for the people that believe that with enough effort and will, it's like Steve Jobs says, they can put a dent in the universe. I think if it's for people that want to stay in their comfort zones, it's not for them, because we're going to force you out of your comfort zone in a really positive way. We're going to force you how to be the best. So if it's for people that want to be average, it's probably not for them. If it's for people that want to be the best, then we only have the best. Again, A's attract A's, B's attract C's. We have almost 200 titans and masters that'll be there. That's kind of the greatest collection of like minds and influencers and brands that's ever been assembled, and that's just in our second year.
Yeah.
So what I feel is like it's really important for people to kind of jump on this journey early so that they can do year 2, year 3, year 4. And I think when they come out of it and look back the same way that we look back in PTTOW 10 years, like the people that are part of it have in a lot of ways been transformed to be the best versions of themselves.
I mean, I love the way you talk about that because, I've attended, I don't know, hundreds of conferences and spoken at dozens. And I often feel like there's no reason for me to come back to this, right? And at the same time, I'm conscious of the fact that, like, the benefits come down the road, right? And when I work with brands, it's the same thing that, like, hey, if you're going to sponsor this music festival once, you might as well not even do it, right? But make a 5-year commitment or a long-term commitment to this culture and this community, and that's when it starts to pay off. And to me, that's absolutely the right approach.
Yeah, our biggest metric for success are like how long people are members.
Yeah.
And on average, we find people are members for 5 years.
Yeah,
And that's really important because otherwise you're wasting your time.
sure.
You go there once, you're out of it. But I think that the real value does come in like year 3 and year 4 when you're working with people that are the best in the world, and you become friends now. So business can really change. I think because we deal at the very highest levels, we see people come in with pitches and they don't know the people they're pitching to.
Yeah.
And it's just a business conversation.
Yeah.
And I think to do epic things, like you can't have a business conversation. What you first have to do is develop a friendship and a respect for each other and empathize with each other where you're coming from. Only when you're friends, you know how you're friends with people and you're like, gosh, what should we do together?
Right.
But now imagine
100%.
if you're friends with someone and you could actually do like epic shit with them.
Yeah.
So the secret formula for what we do as Worldz is for people. That's why I said like friendship first, because when you're friends and you're already surrounded by the most influential people, then the things that can happen out of it are just pretty amazing. And I think that's where we've done the hard work. We've done the hard work of bringing together all 70 industries, the best of the best, so that the members that become part of Worldz can really get the most out of it, which goes back to when I used to go to these events. It was like the wrong people talking about the wrong things.
Absolutely.
Here it's the right people with a curriculum that's never been created before, and you actually have like a toolkit that you leave with that if you follow, you're going to be successful, and that you can even take back to your teams. So as you can see, like I get really fired up because I can help, and our communities can help people develop as people and as professionals.
That's great. All right, I have a little speed round before they kick us out of here. Before we get to that, I have one last question. What do you think has been the biggest sacrifice you've made to get where you are?
I think the biggest sacrifice I've made is not allowing mediocrity into my life. Like, I don't have any sacrifices now. Like, for me, I love working hard. I love putting in the hours. I love my obsession for what I do. Sometimes you almost feel guilty because, like, even the word obsession, like, is kind of not PC.
Right.
But sorry,
Yeah.
you got to be obsessed to be the best. And so I would say that giving myself the permission to be able to go after being the best and creating that for other people. If I can't do it, like, we can't create that for other people.
Yeah.
So I think it's, not allowing like average things into my life when it comes to, doing things. And what we find, the reason why we attract such great minds and the time of people is because I think they appreciate the level of excellence that we try to create for them. And yeah.
That's great. I love it. Okay, so if you can go back and give one piece of advice to yourself at 18, what would you say?
I would say that, number one, because even up until, if you think about PTTOW, like, it didn't start until I was like 35. And so the piece of advice that I would give myself is, don't follow the rule book. Don't follow what your friends are doing. Don't follow what your family wants you to do. Don't follow what your peers are doing, what other professionals are doing. Don't follow the rule book. Follow your heart. Take time to pause and think about and reflect on what you love, what gives you goosebumps, what gets you excited. It doesn't mean that you're going to get it right away. But as long as you follow, it's not a straight line, but if you follow the curvy road to where that is, one day you will, and it might take 20 years, but one day you'll be like, wow, I followed what I love, and that's why I'm here. And if there's no way you could have reversed engineered it. Versus if you do what your parents wanted you to do, or you do what your peers wanted to do, or you do what the colleges wanted you to do, what your rulebook wanted to do, all of a sudden you become a different person.
Yeah.
Your destiny is when the world's greatest need and your greatest talent meet. To be able to have that talent, you need to have that type of passion and obsession in your life. So if your family tells you need to be a doctor and you're not obsessed with being a doctor, you're living somebody else's life.
Yeah.
You're living somebody else's consciousness. So the only rule, I would give myself a number of rules. Number one is pursue the things that you love. And the other thing I would say is be focused. Don't get distracted by too much partying. Don't get distracted by too much social media.
Yeah.
Don't get distracted by things that aren't going to really move the needle on your life. Because if you get distracted by doing all those other things, one day you're going to end up at a place where you're not happy with where you are in your life.
Sure.
Because you don't have the discipline to be able to make the tough choices or to just not do certain things. So I would also say, give yourself the freedom to have discipline. It's okay to create certain boundaries depending on what you want to achieve in your life. Whether it's starting a family, whether it's building a business. Being an entrepreneur isn't for everybody, whether it's like being at a company. Another thing I'll add is, meeting among the most successful people, there's kind of rules that I learn, and those rules I want to share with others. And so that's why I'm grateful to be on your show here and share that. And the other thing is, to be successful, there's three types of people. There's people that are always asking you for things. Those people are never successful. There's people that are, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you, tit for tat. Those people are marginally successful. But the other people that are the most successful are people that are irrationally generous. And the most successful people I've met, whether they're financially successful or passion successful, they have an irrational capacity to help other people. Not people that don't appreciate and take advantage of it,
Sure.
but for people that can help them in their lives. And to be irrationally generous towards people that can help your personal life or your professional life is probably one of the most important things that you can do.
I love that. I love that phrase, irrationally generous. That's great.
The person that came up with that is Adam Grant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he wrote a book on generosity.
Oh, cool. Is there another talent that you have always wished you had more of?
I probably wish I could sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And actually at Worldz, we do have a guy named Roger Love, who's among the world's best voice coaches.
Oh,
like
no
he's
way.
coached like Taylor Swift. He teaches executives because, do you like your voice?
Not particularly.
Okay. But when you talk to someone, what's the first thing they hear from you?
Yeah, they hear your voice.
And you're into media and branding.
Right.
How important is
Sure,
that to
it's
who
a
you
brand.
are?
Absolutely.
Right. So that's what he told me. I'm like, oh shit, like that's important.
Yeah.
So I still haven't
that's
gotten
good.
to a point to be like a great singer, but that would
There's
be
an
cool.
argument I've read.
I got some dance moves.
I've
but
read
no
that,
singing.
that everyone can sing.
Everybody
Right,
can do
can learn to
anything.
sing. Well,
like that's not
fair
any
enough,
like
yeah.
literally anything.
Yeah.
I mean, some people like Tony Gonzalez might have like a bigger wingspan,
Sure.
so he can jump higher.
Right.
But there's a whole concept around talent that is overrated.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe that talent could be a curse.
Totally.
And anybody can do anything.
Yeah. Okay, so if I worked for PTTOW or Worldz, what's something I would hear you say over and over?
Centers of excellence.
Okay.
I would say that.
Right.
I would say that. I would say that find a mission. Like I want everyone on the team to feel like we have a mission to do something bigger than ourselves. 2, I want them to feel like they've got autonomy, so that they can make decisions on their own. Although it doesn't seem like it all the time. And 3, they should also. I feel like everyone should be the CEO of their job. So if you're a coordinator, be the CEO of being the coordinator for social media.
Yeah.
Don't expect other people to do things for you. Like, don't make assumptions.
Yeah.
So to me, there's a lot of lessons. We have an ethos at the company also around irrational generosity, gratitude, delivering the wow.
Yeah, those are great. What's the last great book you read?
Do things 10 times better than you could have, imagined. The last great book I read. What am I in the middle of? I'd read like certain chapters in a book and then I'd kind of move on.
Yeah.
But I'd say, and I read some of my books on my iPhone, but
You read Kindle or you read or Audible?
iPhone.
Oh, just iBooks.
Yeah, iBooks.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
The last book that I read that I was really blown away by was called The Night Circus. And the author is, I'm not going to forget it. But anyways, Night Circus.
Night Circus.
And it's about creating the most magical circus on earth.
Oh, cool. Nice. I'm going to check that out. Who would you be most excited to learn as a fan of yours or of your work?
Probably Elon Musk.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty dope.
Yeah. No kidding. What's your favorite city to travel to?
I would say, like, for me, like, I think there's 2 parts to it. One, I love Rio. Just because the people are effusive. Like, I want to go where people are the most authentic. And there isn't a place that you have, like, more passionate people than Rio. But then I also like I love, the French Riviera and kind of that whole kind of culture as well.
Yeah.
So I like both sides. One is like you're just going to get in it and all about the passion. Then I love getting away from all the hard work and passion
Yeah,
and obsession and just like
course.
having a glass of like rosé
Absolutely.
overlooking the Mediterranean.
Totally.
So I'd say like Saint-Tropez, St. Bart's.
Great. What movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
Ooh, that's a good one. The TV show, I watch Seinfeld all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, that show.
I want you to go to sleep
Yeah.
because it's like, I know, it's like comforting.
Yeah. I would honestly say, I would say The Fifth Element, I watch all the time. Moulin Rouge.
Oh, yeah.
Anything like, actually, they're both Luc Besson movies.
Oh, yeah.
So I really love like Luc Besson, like he's just such a great creator of dreamlike experience.
So cool.
Yeah.
And favorite DJ?
Wow. I mean, I grew up with different DJs. So like, breaking like French house music in the United States, like Bob Sinclair, like
Bob
getting
Sinclair.
things out. I remember being like living in New York City and really like Love Generation breaking. And that's when I feel like house music became popular culture versus underground culture in the US. And then, everything from David Guetta. There's just like a lot of really good, I think, crossover right now. I like to discover music from Europe. And so like who the up and coming DJs are, who the up and coming lyricists are. We work with a lot of great DJs. At Worldz, we had Marshmello there. We had Thomas Jack. We have this year, we had Aoki at PTTOW, and so we work with a lot of the top DJs. And I still, can't believe it. It's such an honor to. I mean, so many. They have tracks. For me, these days it's even not as much about albums, but just certain tracks are like generational.
Yeah, nice. So if people want to learn more about Worldz,
go to Worldz, WORLDZ as in zebra, .us.
Cool.
It's all about us.
Yeah.
And right now we actually opened it up so you can register and get a ticket there.
Okay.
Or get a pass. We don't consider them tickets. But it's called the World Pass. It's going to be sold out. So I would just recommend kind of getting there. Everything's pretty much locked. So I would recommend getting that before it gets completely full. We sold out last year. And I'm just excited about the long-term nature of it. Like,
absolutely.
I'm excited not just for people to come to Worldz, but for them to join this movement and be on this journey to create what's never been done before and take responsibility for what happens in our world.
That's so cool. Is there one channel on social that people should follow if they want to stay in touch with Worldz?
Yeah, I would do It's Worldz on Facebook, and it's Worldz Tribe on Instagram, and I think there's good information there.
Nice, cool, dude. Thanks for doing this, man. This was a lot of fun.
This is.
I love the stories.
Thank you for creating this awesome show.
That's great, and I can't wait to see Worldz.
I am too.
Right on. Cool. All right, that was Roman Tsunder live on Rebel Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you leave us a comment on iTunes, on Twitter at Rebel Radio Net. You can hit our Facebook page, and you can watch videos from all of our episodes on youtube.com/Rebel Radio Net. Most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Peace.